Okay, so this is assignment 2 from the National 4 Literacy Workbook. Question 1, it says to complete the following 2-bar phrase in each pattern to create repetition. So as you'll know, repetition is when a musical phrase is repeated and it looks exactly the same. So all you'd be required to do here is to show repetition by you're given one musical phrase. And what would look like if it was repeated? Well, you know it would happen exactly the same again. So all you'd be expected to do in here is carefully copy it exactly as it is in the bar before. My suggestion would be to put the note heads in first and try and space them in the same way that they are there. And then you can pop in your stems just to make it nice and neat and so everything evens up. And that's that one. That's the first one done for you, and you would do the same throughout this entire question. Over the page, it gets a little bit more complicated because it asks you to complete the following sequence one note higher. So an ascending sequence means that there is a musical phrase that is repeated, but it moves higher. When it's copied, it appears slightly higher. So it wants you to move one note higher here. So if this is our phrase, there's 4 notes in our phrase. The first note of this is on the 3rd space, which we know would be a C. So if we're moving one note higher, then this note here has to start one note higher. So instead of being on this 3rd space here, you're moving it onto that 4th line. So all I'm going to do is put my note head on that 4th line. Then the second note is on the 2nd line. So if I'm putting that in and I'm moving it one note higher, instead of being on the 2nd line, I'm going to go into the 2nd space. The 3rd note is on the 2nd space. Moving it one note higher, I'm going to go onto the 3rd line, because that would be one note up. And then the final one, 1st space, moves on to the 2nd line. Again, doing my note heads first, just because it gives me less to rub out if I make a mistake. And a wee noting point here, you might notice that some of the stems are going down and some of the stems are going up. Remember, if the note is above the middle line, then the stem comes down on the left. And if it is below the middle line, then the stem comes up on the right. And if it's on the middle line, it is up to you. If it's attached to something, then you would go in the same direction. So in this one here, that note's there is on the middle line. And the one after it's above it, but it's still got a stem going upwards because 2 of that set of 4 are below. Whereas here I can make a choice to go up or down, so I'm going to make it look like the one over there. So I'm going to keep it going up. And that would be that exercise. So I would just do the same for the next one again. I'd be looking at the first note, which is a C below there, below the first line of the stave. So I no longer need that line because I'm moving above it. So I'm in the space there for my first note for that second one. And you would carry on like that for question 2. In question 3, you have to do the same thing but move one note lower. So here in question 3A, my first note is a G, so I'm moving one note lower, which moves me into that 1st space. The next one, moving down. Now I can also check this by, all of these are moving down by step. So I can do the same, as long as I get my first note right, all of these then moving one down by step. And that would be how my first one would work. Again, you can do it from each note, or you can work out your first note and then work it out in relation to that. And that would be question 3. Question 4 is just a matter of writing in whether what's happening here is repetition or an ascending sequence or a descending sequence. So a wee reminder, if you ascend up a stairwell, then you're moving up. And if you're descending, then you're going down. Okay, so think ascending, going up, descending, we're going down. So this one here, bar 1 compared to bar 2, we start on a C, which is in the 3rd space. Compared to this one, we start on a B, which is on the 3rd line. So I have moved down, okay? So we're looking from the first note here to the first note here. I've moved down. So that's going to be a descending sequence on that one. Same for the second one. I would have a look. I see they start on the same note, which means, and they actually look exactly the same all the way along, which means that one is repetition. And you would carry on like that all the way through to the end of the question.